The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Let's uncover the timeless gems from The Psychology of Money, a book that reveals how simple behaviors can lead to extraordinary wealth. Have you ever heard the story of a janitor who lived a quiet, humble life? He swept floors. He pumped gas. He wore old shirts. He lived in a small town and never made headlines. His name was Ronald Red, and when he died at age 92, he left behind $8 million. How? It wasn't luck. It wasn't inheritance. It was behavior. He saved. He invested. And he let time do the heavy lifting. Today, we'll uncover what made his approach so powerful and how you can apply the same mindset. Because money isn't just about intelligence. And it's definitely not about winning the lottery. It's about patience, perspective, and the discipline to play the long game, even when the world screams for instant results. That's what the psychology of money is really about, and why it just might change the way you think about building wealth. So stick around, because the secret to mastering money isn't in numbers. It's in how you think. Lesson 1. No one is crazy. When it comes to money, we often look at other people's decisions and think, what were they thinking? Why would someone blow an entire paycheck on lottery tickets? Why stash cash under a mattress? Why go all in on risky stocks? But here's the truth. No one is crazy. Not really. People make financial decisions based on their own experiences, the world they grew up in, the lessons they learned, and the pain or comfort they've lived through. If you grew up during a time of high inflation, banks might feel like a trap. If you saw the stock market crash during your childhood, risk might feel terrifying. But if your experience was steady growth and safety, taking risks might seem natural, even necessary. Take lottery players, for example. In the U.S., low-income households spend over $400 a year on lottery tickets. To many, that seems irrational, especially when over a third of these households don't even have $400 saved for an emergency. But imagine living paycheck to paycheck. No savings, no investments, no real path to financial freedom. In that situation, the lottery isn't about math. It's about hope. It's a small, affordable shot at a dream that feels completely out of reach. That's the key idea. People act rationally within their own version of the world. So instead of judging, observe. Study patterns. Try to understand the context behind people's choices. And most importantly, recognize that your way of thinking about money isn't the only way. Lesson 2. Never enough. Humans have a remarkable ability to compare. We work hard, earn more, save diligently, and still, we feel like it's not quite enough. Because no matter how much we achieve, there's always someone with more money, more success, more of something. Imagine earning $2 million. Most people would call that a dream. But now imagine learning your colleague earned $2.1 million. Suddenly, your own success feels smaller. That's the problem. Capitalism creates wealth, but it also creates envy. And envy quietly convinces us that what we have will never be enough. Take Bernie Madoff. On the outside, he was a massive success, managing billions, living in luxury, and enjoying the kind of status most people only dream of. But even that wasn't enough. Instead of staying honest, he built the largest Ponzi scheme in history. His investors believed they were earning steady, impressive returns, but it was all a lie. By the time he was arrested, Madoff had defrauded people out of $65 billion. Some lost everything. And the twist? He didn't need to do it. Madoff was already wealthy. He didn't need more. But he wanted to be admired, envied, and unbeatable. In the end, he lost it all: his money, his freedom, his reputation, and even his family. It's easy to believe that happiness scales with wealth, that more money always leads to a better life. But reality tells a different story. Look at Evelyn Adams. She won the lottery not once, but twice, collecting over $5 million in the 1980s. She should have been set for life. But within a decade, she was broke. She gambled her money away, made poor investments, lent cash to friends, and lived without a financial plan. Today, she lives in a trailer park, not because she never had enough, but because enough was never enough. Morgan Housel puts it simply: never risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. It's one of the most valuable financial lessons you can learn. Lesson number 3, the price of wealth. Wealth doesn't come free, not just in dollars, and certainly not without patience. Think about buying a luxury watch. You wouldn't steal it. You'd pay the price, accept the cost, and walk away with something valuable. Investing works the same way, except far fewer people are willing to pay the emotional cost that comes with it. Now, imagine this. It's the late 1990s. The internet is exploding. Jeff Bezos is making headlines, and you decide to invest in Amazon. You believe in the future. Then suddenly, the dot-com bubble bursts. Between 2000 and 2001, Amazon stock doesn't just drop. It crashes by 95%. Your $10,000 investment turns into just $500. The media declares Amazon dead. Experts call a bubble. Investors run for the exits. But here's the thing. If you held on, if you stayed calm during the panic and didn't sell, that same investment would eventually grow into millions. Today, Amazon is worth over $1 trillion. The reward was real, but so was the emotional price. That's the part many people forget. The cost of wealth isn't just financial. It's the stress, the uncertainty, the constant second-guessing, and the discipline to stay invested even when everything looks like it's falling apart. Let's take a broader view. If you had invested in the S&P 500 in 1980, you'd be wealthy today. But you'd also have lived through 13 years when your portfolio dropped more than 20%, and one stretch where it fell nearly 50%. Could you have stayed the course? Even beloved companies like Netflix have had their crashes, losing 80% of their value at times. Most investors panicked and sold. Only those who endured the volatility saw the long-term rewards. Here's the truth. Volatility is not a penalty. It's the fee. It's the price you pay for the opportunity to build lasting wealth. And just like any worthwhile reward, you have to decide if you're willing to pay that price, not just once, but over and over again. Because those who can't handle the storms, they're usually priced out before the wealth arrives. Lesson 4. Luck and risk, two sides of the same coin. Have you ever wondered why some people seem destined for extraordinary success, while others work just as hard, but never quite get there? Take Bill Gates, for example. Brilliant? Without a doubt. Hardworking? Absolutely. But there's another factor in his story that's often overlooked: luck. Bill Gates is one of the richest people in the world. He built Microsoft, helped bring computers into homes and schools, and changed the course of technology forever. Most people know he's intelligent. And yes, he put in the work. But what many don't realize is that his journey also involved a rare and powerful stroke of luck. When Gates was a teenager in the late 1960s, he attended a private school in Seattle. That school just happened to have a computer, something almost unheard of at the time. To put that in perspective, most schools didn't have computers. Most colleges didn't either. Even calculators were rare. Yet Gates had access to one of the only school computers in the country, and he used it for hours on end. He learned to code at a time when most kids didn't even know what coding was. Now ask yourself, what if Bill Gates had gone to a different school? One without a computer? Would he still have created Microsoft? Would he still be one of the richest men in the world? Maybe, but maybe not. That's the nature of luck. It's not everything, but it's not nothing either. Gates didn't choose his birth year, or his school, or the fact that a rare piece of technology happened to be available to him at the exact right time. Those things just happened, and they made a difference. But here's the key. Luck works both ways. Just like luck can boost someone forward, risk can pull someone down, even if they do everything right. Some people lose jobs during recessions they didn't cause. Others face medical bills, bad timing in the markets, or family emergencies. Two people can make the exact same decisions and end up with very different outcomes. That's why Morgan Housel reminds us, luck and risk are both real, and they're often out of our control. So instead of judging success or failure too quickly, we should approach money with humility. Because what looks like brilliance might involve a bit of luck, and what looks like failure might just be someone who took a hit from risk they never saw coming. The lesson is simple. Be grateful when things go right, and be cautious about assuming you're fully in control. Because no one succeeds alone, and no one fails entirely by themselves either. Lesson 5. Getting rich versus staying rich. In 1929, just before the most devastating stock market crash in history, a man named Jesse Livermore made one of the boldest financial moves of all time. He shorted the market, and when it collapsed, he walked away with $100 million. That's over $1 billion in today's money. He was called a genius, a legend. Everyone wanted to know his secret. But here's the twist. Just a few years later, he lost it all. Overconfidence, leverage, risky bets that went too far. Despite having the knowledge and instincts to build a fortune, he didn't have the mindset to keep it. That's the key most people miss. Getting rich is one skill. Staying rich is another. Let's look at another example. Richard Fuscone, a former Merrill Lynch executive. Smart, successful, living a high life. But in 2008, during the financial crisis, he was over-leveraged, too much debt, too many risky bets. When the market turned, he went bankrupt. Now compare that to Ronald Read, a janitor, a gas station attendant. Quiet, frugal, simple. He didn't make flashy moves. He didn't chase trends. He just saved steadily, invested patiently, and lived below his means. When he passed away, people were stunned. He left behind over $8 million. One man had everything and lost it. The other had very little and built real, lasting wealth. What was the difference? One mastered the art of growing money. The other mastered the skill of keeping it. Think of building wealth like climbing a mountain. The climb is hard, but the descent is where most accidents happen. Warren Buffett didn't just become rich, he stayed rich for decades. His secret? Not chasing every trend, not swinging for the fences, but discipline, patience, and knowing that it's better to miss an opportunity than to risk everything he already has. Many people figure out how to make money. Very few learn how to protect it, because staying rich requires something harder than intelligence. It takes caution, humility, and the wisdom to know when not to act. You can win big with one lucky stock, a business idea, or even an inheritance. But without discipline, that wealth can vanish just as quickly as it appeared. Getting rich requires boldness. Staying rich requires prudence. And true financial mastery? It lies in knowing how to balance both. When to take risks, and when to step back and protect what you've built. Lesson 6. Tails drive everything. In finance and in life, most of your results don't come from consistent, steady progress. They come from a few rare, extraordinary events. This is known as the long tail. Take venture capital in Silicon Valley. A firm might invest in 50 startups. Out of those, 45 will likely fail. 3 might break even. 1 or 2 will return something decent. But one single company, maybe just one, will become a massive breakout success that pays for all the others, and more. The same principle applies to investing, careers, even relationships. Most things won't change your life, but a handful of moments, maybe just a few, will define your future. Look at Heinz Bergerwin, a legendary art dealer. Over his lifetime, he collected more than 120 pieces by Picasso. Not every purchase was a masterpiece, but just a few of them became worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's what built his fortune. The lesson is simple. You don't need to be right all the time. You just need to be in the game long enough for the rare winners to show up. Instead of obsessing over every small decision or trying to avoid every failure, focus on positioning yourself for the big wins. Because that's what matters. A few tail events, rare, unpredictable, powerful outcomes, are what define financial success. You'll probably fail often. That's normal. But if you give yourself enough chances, a single tail event can change everything. Lesson 7. How staying calm during crises creates wealth. Why does bad news feel so much more powerful than good news? Because pessimism sounds smart. It feels cautious, logical, safe. Meanwhile, optimism sounds naive, like ignoring reality. That's why every time there's a market crash, a recession, or a political panic, it dominates the headlines. But here's what history tells us. Despite wars, depressions, pandemics, and countless moments of chaos, the stock market has trended upward for over a century. Progress happens, but it's quiet, slow, unremarkable in the moment. People invent, build, and solve problems, even in the darkest times. And those who stay calm, those who hold steady and keep going, they're the ones who build lasting wealth. Look back over the last 100 years. The Great Depression, World War II, the 2008 crash, the COVID-19 pandemic. Each one caused panic, headlines, and mass selling. But the people who stayed invested, who didn't let fear take over, came out stronger in the end. As Morgan Housel puts it, crashes are part of the journey, not the end of it. Some of the biggest fortunes in history were made during downturns. Not by people who predicted the crash, but by those who remained rational when everyone else was emotional. Staying calm in a crisis isn't easy, but it's powerful, because in the long run, time rewards the patient. Let others panic. You stay steady. That's how wealth is built. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, once explained something important. Humans are wired to care more about losses than gains. It makes sense when you think about it. In ancient times, noticing danger meant staying alive. So we evolved to pay attention to threats and to treat them as more serious than potential rewards. But in modern finance, that instinct can lead us astray. Because while pessimism sounds intelligent, optimism often sounds naive. That's why every recession, crash, or crisis makes headlines, while steady, quiet progress is ignored. But let's look at the facts. In the last century alone, we've lived through the Great Depression, World War II, multiple financial crises, and even the COVID-19 pandemic. Each one sparked panic. Each one caused people to predict the end of the market or the system itself. But you know what happened? The markets recovered. And not just recovered, they thrived. Why? Because while problems dominate the news, progress happens quietly. People keep inventing. They keep building. They keep solving problems, even during the hardest times. And those who stay calm, while others panic, they're often the ones who end up building the greatest fortunes. Some of the biggest gains in investing history happened during downturns. Not because someone timed it perfectly, but because they stayed invested when fear was everywhere. As Morgan Housel puts it, crashes are part of the journey, not the end of it. So the next time fear starts to creep in, when markets dip and headlines scream disaster, don't let fear take the wheel. Stay steady. Think long-term. Let time do the heavy lifting. Because optimism isn't blind, it's based on history. And history shows that patience, not panic, builds wealth.